Hey guys, this is Eric Weingarten with Weingarten Racing. It's Saturday, so it's an update video type of day, but also I've got other stuff in it. So in this video, what we're going to talk about first is the Cam Challenge, and I know you're beating a dead horse. Yes and no. There's actually new information out about that, so let me make sure I get to that. The other thing is I want to do a rant, and sometimes people hate the rant, some people love the rant, and it's actually about NASCAR, and I'll get to that in this video. So before I do any of that, I have been really bad about thanking people. And there's been lots of companies that have helped me out, and they don't realize that I do appreciate it. I just don't always have time. The Small Block Ford Cam Challenge is taking place in 2 weeks. So the week after July 4th, so this week's July 4th week. The following Monday, we should be starting on the Cam Challenge for the Small Block Ford. So you have a live feed and stuff. But because of that, I've been trying to get so much done in the shop that I haven't really had a chance to tell people thank you. So there's some companies I really need to thank. First off, probably a year ago, that's how bad this one is, more than a year at this point. Kryptonite Customs, which is here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Broken Arrow actually, they made these first stickers for me, and I was happy to pay for it, but they did it for free, and I was really thankful. So thank you for Kryptonite Customs. Speaking of stickers though, this company right here, I'm pulling out their thing real quick. They said, can you send me a logo? And I was like, yeah, sure, because so many people say that they're going to do stuff and they never do. This company here, Same Day Banners. Hopefully I got it on there right. It says bannershtx.com. They sent me some stickers. They sent me these ones, which you can hardly see as well. So Kryptonite Customs did me a set, solid. Thank you so much. But then these guys sent ones too. So they did a fantastic job as well. And since they do banners, I would love to have a Weingarten Racing banner. I think I actually am supposed to get one. This is a little side story for you. But I kept donating to the Broken Arrow swim team, and then they made a banner and hung it at the back. And I think I'm supposed to get it after the season was over. Well, obviously the season's over. Matter of fact, they don't even have a place to swim anymore, so I would think I get that back, but I'm not sure. But a banner would be cool. One of the things I'm really trying to get is, especially after learning from the swim meet last weekend, I'll stick around to the end, I'll tell you that whole experience. But there was and I've seen them at races, these pop-up tent things, canopies, I guess what you call them. And having a logo on that would be cool. I don't know how we ever survived back in the day before having this stuff because the sun is brutal. But anyway, thanks for those. And also there's this guy named Ken Collins. He makes these cool racing parts. And I'm still waiting to test these on the dyno. So sorry, Ken, haven't made it that far. Really have been he's pretty busy. But he did send a whole bunch of stuff, and I thank you for all that. And one of the things he sent, which did help out during the swim meet, and I would recommend it to anybody, and I've seen Steve Morse wearing it too. It's a deal you wear around your neck. You get it cold, and it helps cool you down. The only disadvantage, and if I had to give some little criticism, is it doesn't hold its cool very long. So I don't know if I did something wrong or whatnot with that. I do think, Ken, just to help you out, you have a market for something you don't even realize. If you could make one, and I know it's going to sound gay to everybody else that's watching this, if you make one that your leg fits into, so one of these cool deals that your leg could slide into, swimmers would buy it up, and I'm going to tell you why. One of the things that swimmers and other athletes do as well is they do ice baths after they're over to relax their muscles to cool them down. With things like this, you wouldn't have to buy so much ice, find a bath, make them miserable to suffer through it. You just put this on. So you could just slide it over their leg as it was cold, and it would do the same purpose. You'd probably end up selling more than you do the actual race parts, if I'm being honest. Because I'm sure track athletes and other athletes would do it too, as opposed to getting an ice bath thing, which is we've done that several times and it's been quite a hassle. But thank you for this. I really do appreciate it. And then also, I don't have any pictures out here for this, but in Broken Arrow, there's a tire company called Robertson Tire. Those guys have always been solid to me. And I don't even mind paying, but they always do good stuff. So in case you're wondering, Bishop got a nail in this tire and took it to Robertson's, and they fixed the tire for free. And thank you so much for that. If you're in the business to getting tires and you're in the Tulsa area, definitely go visit Robertson's Tires. I recommend the one over here on Elm, and that's where I get all my work done. And Broken Arrow, great people to deal with. So there's that. And then this one, there's a reason why these are here. This is a nice piece, right? This is a rocker bar setup, and you're like, well, what's it fit and who made it? This comes from Terry Wilkes, and he has been great to deal with as well. And I don't think I mentioned him enough, but fantastic. Matter of fact, his rocker arms are on the small block Ford that we're using for the Cam Challenge. They're nice pieces. Check out this rocker bar, right? In case you're wondering what it fits, and this makes me so excited. This is the rocker bar that fits the Pro Max LS3 small bore heads. And as you know, I just this week sent it off to get digitized and ported, one of those. So that is going to be fantastic. And this bar setup right here is so I can run it on a solid roller, because I love small block Chevys, but that LS really does have a lot of potential, and it made a lot of power with that small bore unported. So now we get it ported, and as you know, I do have a solid roller cam that matches the same specs that were in the small block Chevy, solid roller lifters. Now I've got the rocker set up. There's a good chance this thing may make over 800. So something like 2 horsepower per cubic inch, which would be fantastic. I really look forward to trying that. I cannot wait. So thank you for him for that as well. Last thing, because this thing is sitting right here, they came in finally. So another shout out and thank you. This would be to Brodix. So I ordered 4 sets of Dragon Slayers. And these are the ones that I'll end up putting my CNC program in for. So in case you're wondering what they look like before, they look like this. Before they're ever ported, this is how they look. So I ordered 4 sets, and 2 of them are counted for, I think, maybe 3. So there's 1 set that's still available, because I try to keep them in stock and just can't. In case you're like, why don't you just keep more merchandise in stock? For the 4 sets of Dragon Slayers, to keep them on my shelf, all valved up and ready to ship out right away, that's keeping over $10,000 in parts just sitting on the shelf. That's a huge investment to just sit there. So it's a risky type of deal, but I try to keep 4 sets in stock at all time. I just haven't been able to. But understand why you can't, sometimes you can't get them. I order them as soon as I sell them, but it just takes time, and that's a lot of investment out. But I know this particular set should be going to Old Man's Garage. So this one's got to be machined, obviously. And then once it gets back from being ported, it has my port on it. I just have someone else has a CNC machine that cuts it. Once they get back, I still have to put the valve guides in, size the guides, do the valve job, blend the valve job, and then of course assemble. But this is a huge thing. But here's why I'm thinking Brodix. The guys at Brodix are fantastic. And speaking of cylinder head companies, I really like dealing with them because they are family owned. And I do really worry what happens whenever the family's like, you know, I'm tired of doing this, I'm getting too old for this, and they want to pass it on to the next generation. Maybe the next generation doesn't want to do it. Brodix, I hope, keeps going as long as they can as a family-run company. But please make an offering to sell to everybody, like where a whole bunch of people owns a small part, almost like stocks, but all racers. I hope to God no private equity ever buys Brodix. But anyway, which I don't think they will. Hopefully it stays in the family till I'm well past dead and gone. But here's what makes them thank them. They had a sprint car race that was up here in Tulsa, and it's been raining the last 2 days. So I don't even know that they even got to actually attend that sprint car race. But they hit me up yesterday and they're like, hey, we got 4 sets for you. Do you want me to just drive them up to you and we'll drop them off? I was like, hell yeah. That saves like $400 in shipping. So, because it's like about $100 a set of heads to ship. And I'm like, Summit charges $12 to ship a set of heads. It's not even close. And Summit probably has enough money in their bank account too that they don't even have to insure it. They can just use their own money as insurance. I have to put insurance on the heads. I promise you it costs way more than that to ship the heads. I know people think I'm gouging on shipping. I promise you I'm not. Shipping is just high, especially if you put insurance on it, which these are too valuable and take too much time not to put insurance on it. So, but Brodix drove it down. Huge thank you to them. Didn't have to do that. I love those guys there at Brodix as well. So if you're gonna buy some Brodix, I prefer if you buy it from me. But if you can't, contact Brodix. They are a great company to deal with. So anyway, I think that kind of wraps up my thank yous. But thank you to all those people. Now let's talk about the Cam Challenge. So there's 2 parts. So the small block Ford, like I just said just a little bit ago, the way I've talked to Gary at Dunsworth Machine, he's got a lot on his plate, all right? So he's been waiting for parts to come in so he can finish certain engines that have to go out. So I am not his most important customer, nor do I nor do I want to make it sound like I am, but he has customer jobs that people are trying to make races. So he's been waiting on parts, and then they all show up at the same time. So now he has multiple engines he has to get together, put together, and dynoed within this week that's coming up. The following week is the cam challenge. He thinks he's going to have it all done by then, so that on Monday we can start dynoing with the small block Ford and testing the camshafts. It may get pushed a day or so just because of him trying to finish his workload. Totally understandable. So look for that. I don't know what day are they, 5, 6, what is that? 5, 6. I think so. July 7th is like tentatively when we're scheduled to start. I'll do a live for each day. The video will probably suck because I'm not going to dick with the camera when I'm trying to do different things on the engine. Just ain't going to happen. We got to get things in and out. So lash is definitely going to be a challenge. So that's what it's looking like. So if you're really looking forward to that, that's it. If you're like, where do I find any of these results on the small block Ford? Like, what will you do? We post on Facebook? No, I will not. So what I will do is every day at the end of the day, I'm going to take pictures of the dyno sheets, and I may make announcements while, of course, I'm doing the live feed. So if you watch the live feed, you can kind of see what's going on. But you'd have to listen to a certain specific point to hear me actually tell how certain companies did. But what I will do at the end of the day is I'll take a picture and I will drop it into the Google Drive for all the people that donated to the small block Ford Cam Challenge. Now, if you're like, how do you do that? Well, in this video's description, you'll see a link to donate to the small block Ford Cam Challenge. Costs $20, the minimum donation. You'll get all the data from the small block Ford. All of its engine specs, all the cam specs are there now. But as the thing goes on, you'll also get the dyno sheets. And you can see what's going on as it's happening. Hopefully nothing goes wrong. If it does, just know that things happen and sometimes things just don't go right. It just happens. But I don't think anything will, but just give me an idea. That's what's going on with the small block Ford. But yesterday on my Facebook, my Real Weingartner Racing Facebook page, I released the small block Chevy Cam Challenge rules. And I even put the entries that's in there, although I'm going to add one here in a second. But as of this, I think there's 15 people entered, maybe less. Something like that, 15, 13, something like that, that officially are entering the competition, the small block Chevy Cam Challenge. If you're like, man, I really would like to have done that, you still have a chance. I would encourage you to read the rules because it tells you exactly how you could still enter right now. In case you're wondering, how do you do it? Well, this is in the rules. We're doing 20 camshafts. 15 people, I would say right now, are in. So that leaves 5 spots that are available to the general public. And here's how you get in. The first cams that are here by August 1st and have paid the $600 entry fee, yeah, it's a little bit higher, you're in. So if you had a camshaft and you're like, by the way, make sure you read the rules though on what's legal for camshafts, which I'll get to in a second. But if you have a legal camshaft and you got it sitting there and you're like, I would like to see how this would do, you could sit it in and $600 and you'd be in. The first 5 that come in, you're in. Now, if 2 happen to show up on the same day, what I'm probably going to do is I will flip a coin on whose it is, and that's how it'll be, or a drawing of those to see, just because there might be a tie. So it's kind of like the LS thing. First ones to get their cams in, first ones entered. Besides the 15 people that are already there. They have till August 1st also to get their cams, which you're like, that's not very much time. It is a 28th, but it's also a small block Chevy Cam. It's not like a Ford. I think there's more cores available. Here are your rules as far as the camshaft. The lobe, you cannot exceed a 400 lobe lift. So do not exceed that. These are in general supposed to be hydraulic roller cams because I am not going to lash them. I can already tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten down the adjuster nut on the shaft rockers till it touches, till it's 0, and back it off just a little. And that should be about 5 thousandths, and I'm just going to, or 5 to 6, and that's just how it's going to be ran. I'm not going to put a feeler gauge and do any of that. That's just how it's going to go. So can you run a solid roller profile? You can, but understand I'm going to lash it that way. That might make it not work out. It has to have a 900 base circle. That may be the trickier part about getting the camshaft. Because CNC grinders, of course, can make almost any low profile in the 900 base circle. The ones that have the master lobes that they have to make, master, like Daniel Powell has, I forgot what they're called. The master plates that they have to use to grind them, they have to be designed on a 900 base serval. And that is more tricky. So that's on you guys. But anyway, do not exceed 400 lobe lift. Also be very mindful of the spring pressures that are going into this. It's a titanium valve and it weighs 89 grams on the intake and I think 60 something on exhaust. So it's pretty light valve, very, very light valve, titanium and all, and thin stem. The spring is a PAC 1255X. It's a beehive, so it's a light spring. Its retainer is really light too, like 20 grams. So the whole valve train package itself is light, but it only has 180 pounds on the seat and something like 418 open. Those specs are in the small block Chevy Cam Challenge data link that you can also donate to and get all that data, which I'll talk about in a minute. But be mindful of that, because if you go on a valve float, you're done. We're shutting you down, that's it, you're done. This is one thing I added to the rules that's a little bit different. You're scored between 4,000 and 6,500. That's how you're scored. That's the RPM range for the peak torque, peak horsepower, average horsepower, and average torque. However, because I want to collect that data, the engine will be ran from 4,000 to 7,000. That 500 extra RPM, you will not be scored on, but it will give you data. And you might be like, why are you even doing that? Because my fear, and I don't think it's unfounded, is that I still think some of you, even though this valve train is extremely lightweight, it should handle a whole lot of RPM. I have a feeling that some people are going to get so aggressive with their lobes that they're going to go into valve flow, even with as light of the valve train and everything that this is. So instead of making everybody go 7,000, beating the crap out of the engine, 6,500. By then, typically you could see if there's valve float anyway. This just prevents that from happening. But because I know you guys, there are people that enter that cam challenge that just want to win. And I appreciate you like you would not imagine. But there's also people that just want information. They want to know what happens with this camshaft at 7,000 and so on. So for all those, including myself, to know what that camshaft does at the higher RPM, that's why we're going to 7,000. It's just not scored. I'll still share those results on the live feed, but you're scored 4,000, 6,500. So even if your cam is designed for 4,000, 6,500 and say it doesn't make any more at 7,000, that's fine. It just gives us more information. Because I have a feeling that some of them be just like the small block Ford, the first one that runs 286 degrees of duration at 50,000s, and it peaks at 7,500 only because we stopped the pool at 7,500. Though I'm sure there are going to be people that are doing the same thing with the small block Chevy, so we'll get to see, is what I'm trying to say. That's different. You still have 3 categories you're scored in. Well, 4 categories: peak horsepower, peak torque, average horsepower, average torque. From 4,000 to 6,500, but in 3 configurations. NA, between 4 and 6 pounds of boost, it really depends on the pulley. And then also between, I think I said 8 and 12 pounds for the next pulley setup. Everybody will be ran with the same pulley setup. So let's say it's a 3-inch and a 2-inch, then everybody's ran with a 3 and 2-inch. Even though your cam might make, even though it's supposed to be like the beginning cam, whatever, makes 5 pounds of boost with this 3-inch pulley, and your hog cam now makes 4, or if it drops to 3 with that same pulley, it is what it is. And I know that will happen. Yeah, we could adjust the pulleys and keep doing that, but that would take up way too much time. And honestly, I don't know. I just don't want to do that. But I understand the complaint with that would be because like, wait a minute, this bigger cam, it made less boost because it's less restrictive. So it made the worst power, not because it didn't do well, it's because it made less boost because it was less restrictive with that pulley setup. You should have gotten a smaller one. Get it, but we didn't end up changing the pulleys forever. 20 cams, 3 different configurations, the amount of pulleys and stuff for that, goodness. That's why it's staying the same. It is what it is. You know now what it's going to be. I may, for fun, if I had time, change those, if I could change them real quick just to see, so you'd have that data, but I wouldn't be scored that way. So if I do decide, you know what, we got time, we could change this pulley real quick and we'll see what it does with this other, maybe we'll do that. I'm not saying we will, but that won't be scored. It'll just be for your information. Anyway, that's a small block Chevy Cam Challenge. The competitors, if you're one of those 15, your entry fee is less. You're $400 because you entered early. You have till August 1st to also get your cam in here and the entry fee in. And that takes care of the cam challenge. Any other questions, feel free to email me, write me, whatever. That wraps up that. Now, I want to talk about something else. And I want to do a rant. So if you're not into my rants, totally understandable, get it. I feel like I talk a lot anyway, so I'm not offended at all. But something happened this week, and I thought, you know what? I'd like to share this with you guys. This week, I've been staying up extremely late. Again, remember, this is a rant, not technical at all, although I feel like most of my viewers will appreciate this, and it has to do with NASCAR. So stick around, maybe you'll feel the same. And I'm kind of curious if you actually feel the same or if it's just me. But anyway, and you don't have to have this individual thing. You just put on audio and you can do whatever you want and just listen to me talk. Anyway, I've been staying up really, really late because of the work and stuff. And then I try to, it's probably not good for your sleep, but I try to watch some YouTube videos or something before I go to bed while I'm working on paperwork stuff. Like for the people that have donated. So for instance, those that donated small block Chevy Cam challenge, there's a link in the description. You purchase that, you get all that stuff. Well, it won't get to you instantly when you purchase it. I have to go into the computer system late at nights or early in the mornings, and what I will do is I'll send those out. Well, while I was doing that, I was running YouTube, and I had watched a video, and so the algorithm thought I would like this other video. And the video I'd watched was Kenny Wallace talking to Mark Martin, and he was talking about how NASCAR isn't what it was when it was popular. And its peak popularity, which I found this interesting because Kenny Wallace is in the broadcasting side. He had more of the numbers. His peak popularity was 2005, and from then it waned off. But I remember how big it used to be, like huge, huge, huge. And I know many of my viewers will agree. I feel bad if you're under the age of 30 because you don't understand how big it used to be. And I feel bad that you don't have that experience. Anyway, to make a long story shorter, while I was doing that, the next thing that popped up, and I recommend you guys watch this because I was like, okay. It popped up NASCAR Classics. That's the name of the YouTube channel. And it said 1986 Talladega 500. And I don't even remember what it was, what the name of the actual race is. I don't know what they call them, but it's besides the Talladega 500, 1986. And I just clicked on it. I was like, I'll have this playing in the background while I'm doing my paperwork, trying to write all the cam challenge rules. I was alive in 86, and I probably watched part of that because if you were alive in those times and watched that, you know that typically it happened on Sunday, and some people had VCR, some didn't, so it wasn't like you got a chance to record it. If you didn't watch it then, you just didn't, typically you didn't get a chance to watch it again. It wasn't like they replayed it later in the week. There was no YouTube to where you could just stream it later on. So chances are I watched part of the race, but not the whole race, because I remember my mom used to come home from nursing because she worked Sundays, and she'd get home at 3, and if the race was still going on at 3, her words were, turn that shit off. So I rarely ever got to see the end of a race. Anyway, so I'm watching this, and even though I had watched it as a child, I got hooked to that race. It had Dale Earnhardt, you had Darrell Waltrip, he was in the Tide car back then. Davey Allison, rest in peace, of course, Dale Earnhardt too. It had Rusty Wallace was in it. Cale Yarborough was still racing at the time. Richard Petty was still racing at that time. I mean, it had a lot of major people. Sorry, I had to pause that. A spam call came in and I thought I would stop recording. I'm so tired of the spam calls. But anyway, it had a lot of major heavy hitters in there. And I'm just doing my little work and I'm watching the race. And I started focusing so much on the race. Now, at that time, they had restrictor plates. Sorry, I think it was 88. I said 86, but it was 88. They still had the Monte Carlos that they were running. You had a Buick that was in there. They had the Oldsmobile. Maybe they had a Pontiac. I'm not 100% certain on that one. Of course, the Fords. Bill Elliott was running too. It sucked me in. I literally sucked me in. And as I'm watching this, it's a 2-hour race. And this is already like 11:30 at night when I started watching it so I could do my work. You know, I stayed up till 1:30 to finish watching the race that happened almost more than 20 years ago. And I thought, wow, this was amazing. And I thought, how did that go from wow to what is going on? So this is where my rant comes from. By the way, I'm just going to start watching more of those races. They're fantastic. What made those races great? Now, granted, they had a restrictor plate back then. I'm not a huge restrictor plate guy. But even back then, what you had, and it's so different from now. So if you watch a NASCAR race now, I can't even understand what's going on. And I'm a car guy. How do you expect a normal person to watch a NASCAR race? You've got stages that make zero sense to me. No races go that way. What track and field event do they run a race, stop in the middle, get your breath, and go again? What's the stage thing is stupid. It's plumb stupid. Nobody does that. You know, the excitement was when they tried to come down on pit road, make changes real fast as they could. Hopefully nothing went wrong, which things did, because in that race, which was fantastic, Bill Elliott's, his crew came in, they came in to change tires, and this has happened to some of us, so we all understand the frustrations. They couldn't get a lug nut off because it stripped the lug nut. It rounded the corners. So they had to bring them back in, and they used crescent wrench at the time because we didn't have the cool tools we do now, and they got it off, and Dave Despain's interviewing the guy, and he said, I'd love to show you the lug nut, but it's now on its way to the moon because it was chunked into space. And I thought, stuff they would never do now. Matter of fact, NASCAR would probably fine you for throwing the lug nut or whatnot. But that was drama. And it wasn't TV made. It was actually happening. There was a racer that lost his windshield in the middle of the race. They came in and got it changed. Awesome. The other thing, and this is the biggest thing about the race itself, it only had like 1 or 2 wrecks. And people are like, you watch NASCAR for wrecks. I didn't watch it for the wrecks in this. What I watch is because it's so different from what they do now. Even as NASCAR, I've tried I tried just a few times. I can't. Back then, it was, I want to lead no matter what. I don't care if it's lap 200 or the final lap or lap 5. I'm going to lead. So the way that drivers worked, even though it was a drafting situation, they were always trying to make their move up to the front, as aggressive as they could. The entire race, so you had people constantly trying to get to the front. Watch a NASCAR race now, it's drafting, because it's all calculated. They're like, just stay in this line, just stay in the line, ride it out. Hopefully this line goes forward. Oh, that line's going forward. Let's just go over to that line. We'll just stay there. You're pretty much driving in traffic, NASCAR now. I'm saying it. You're essentially on a freeway. Is this lane going faster? Let's switch to this lane. Is this lane going? No. NASCAR back then are like, screw it, going for it. Getting over here, okay, I'll move up and over and up and over and down 3, I'll go third, I'll be on my own. Someone will follow me, I hope. It was fantastic. For instance, this is the kicker for this race, and if Darrell Waltrip, I know he would never watch my stuff because he's like, who's this bum? But if Darrell Waltrip or even Dale Earnhardt would ever watch my stuff, I'd be so tickled to death. But I would so wanted to ask, if I could just ask him one question, this is of Darrell Waltrip. In that race, he had led 55 laps to start off with. He was the dominant car. It was the Tide car, by the way. Dominant car. It's like 5 laps to go. Something breaks on his engine. I was like, oh, you could just see his soul leave his body. And it was like, oh, crushing. Because he comes down the pits, and that's back when they had the open face helmets, and they had the, the goggles. And this is different now. The camera guy goes right to him, and instead of now, like the guys would be just furious, and they'd probably start yelling at him and stuff. They all did the same thing, because I saw Earnhardt do the same thing too. They just give him the hand, and instead of the announcer being the douches that they are now, where they constantly still try. They understood the hand, just backed off, and waited for them to come to them, which they did. Because if I could get Darrell Waltrip on, I would want to ask him, hey, Darrell, what'd you think? Because, man, I know he had to be thinking, I've got this, because he has the dominant car. There's no question if you watch the race, you're like, the dominant car. Even if you're not a Darrell Waltrip fan, you're like, he should have won, and then 5 gone. So then guess who takes over the lead? Dale Earnhardt, the dog, right? My man. Do it for Dale, And he's taking over the lead, and I'm like, oh, yes, he might win it. But then I'm also realized, oh, he's kind of in a bad position because he's in the lead. And you're like, no, that's a good position. No, he's not. because someone will hang you out to dry. As soon as they get around you, get a couple cars to push you, and that's what happened. So I was like, 1 to go. He's got the lead. This could be it. And I was like, I don't remember who won this one. Ken Schrader was second for most of the race. He ends up winning in the Bud one. Fantastic race. NASCAR, you took something great and you screwed it. If you want to know when I stopped watching, it was about 2005, actually, when it was at its peak. It's because you sold out NASCAR. I'm going to tell you exactly how you sold out. And Mark Martin was mentioning that on the podcast too. You sold out to big money for what they thought. And these aren't racers. These aren't people that have ever been in a race car. They aren't die-hard race car guys. You're just not. When you do that, by the way, you not only ruin the viewership currently, you ruin future viewership. Kids now don't watch it with their father because their dad doesn't watch it, which means you don't have a generation coming up, which also means NASCAR's audience base is aging out. So you might be like, what do you mean? How do they screw up? I stopped watching in 2005 because NASCAR, you sold out. And you're like, what do you mean? You brought Toyota in. I said I would never watch a race after that. And I didn't for like 10 or 15 years. You brought Toyota in. And I know you're like, the drivers that did that, I get why you signed up to run Toyota. They gave you money and you have to have money to run a race car. NASCAR should have never let that happen. You didn't let fuel injection in until when? Like late? You didn't roller cams in until late. But you brought Toyota in for money. Forgetting your fan base is die-hard Americans. These are not your white-collar, some of them might have been, but for the most part, your fan base was blue-collar, sweat their balls off at some job that's 100 degrees making something, and then they're going to go home and work on their car when it's still hot, spend their last dime on this race car. They are a true actual hard-working Americans. In this heat now, working. Those people do not support Japanese cars because they didn't work on Japanese cars unless they're an auto mechanic. And the biggest thing that stopped me was the Daytona 500 was called the Great American Race. How can you have a Japanese car win the Great American Race? I said, I ain't for that. And I was done. And I didn't watch for 15 years. If I, diehard, loved NASCAR like you would not believe, gave it up for that, what about the people that were just on the fence? What about the guy that works at, say, a Chevrolet dealership or a Ford dealership, Dodge dealership, or maybe they're even the manufacturing plant and they just got laid off because Toyota now sold more cars than they did? How do you think they felt? What do you think would happen? But you made more money, NASCAR. You cut off your nose to spite your face. That's what you did. You got the money now to not see what would happen later. And that's exactly what happened. And then Mark Martin mentioned it too. You did the dumbest thing ever with the playoff thing. You did stage races and playoff things. Because at that point, you didn't understand because you didn't know your base. Clearly, you do not know your base. You gave up the Toyota, you brought in Toyota for money. You brought in Fox News, which now you can only, or Fox Network, so you can only watch it on that station. You did all this so you could get more money. Even Mark Martin says they don't really seem like they got any more money, the drivers. So you got more money, but you killed your brand and everything else. Then to make up for the loss of viewership, you decide you're going to try different things because also the Fox guys are like, hey, we invested a lot of money in this stuff and your ratings suck. You ain't near what they were. We need to change things. And you're like, well, let's do playoffs. That's dumb. It's dumb. It was dumb then. It's still dumb. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. No one has liked it. What we like is we like rooting for someone that make it. We like for the average person to be able to do it. I can also go onto your cars. When I'm watching the 1988 Talladega race, that Monte Carlo, you could go to the Chevrolet lot, and that Monte Carlo would look really, really similar to the one that's racing. Like the actual body looks similar. If you got a Camaro now, it looks, the decals and stuff look the same as the Camaro that races, but not really. Same with the Mustang, not really. If you put them up to next to each other, matter of fact, you'd be like, well, NASCAR is wider. And then from the mechanic standpoint, or engine person, if you want to call it that way, at the time in '88, they were still running a small block Chevy in cars you bought from a Chevrolet dealership. Ford still had Windsors, which you could still do at Cleveland, so it kind of made sense that you could run those heads. So you still kind of could. What about now? What engine do they use in the Camaros? It's an LT. What engine is in the Camaro that's NASCAR? An R07. Does it have anything that's similar that you could bolt on from an LT? No, you couldn't. It's not even how about the Fords? They've got their own and they have a Coyote in their production car. Not at all. How about a Toyota? It's just, and I understand why you thought you needed to do it. They wanted to make a better platform to last. No. The reason why stuff sold was because ran on Sunday, sold on Monday. Now you can run on Sunday. There's nothing to buy from that car on Monday. Do you not get that? So yeah, it takes money to run the vehicles, but you just got rid of it. What incentive does Chevrolet have to even put their name on? What incentive does Ford have? No Fords are sold more because of that now. No Chevys are. I would argue even Toyotas are. Toyota drivers aren't the ones that watch NASCAR. I'm sorry, they're not. Your Celica owner doesn't watch NASCAR. There's things you could do now to change it, but it would cost you a lot of money. Probably a lot of teams like, we spent so much money in development, this would never work. I'm going to give you a few suggestions here at the end. My next thing has to do with sponsorship. When I'm watching that 1988 race and I see Tide on Darrell Waltrip's car and he's winning, the first thing he says, or whenever any of the people came out, they didn't go, I'd like to thank my sponsor, Tide, Wonder Bread, blah, 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 every one of their sponsors. That sounds so cheese dickery now, I cannot stand it. It sounds corporate stuff. They never said that back then. And it wasn't because that they weren't supporting their sponsors if they didn't say it. The sponsoring team totally misses this point. When Tide was on Darrell Waltrip's car, we didn't think Darrell Waltrip's uniforms are so much cleaner because he used Tide and we should buy Tide. No. The reason why Tide might sell more product and the reason why they put their name on the car, or at least it makes sense to me, why Tide would put a name on their car of Darrell Waltrip's, wasn't because it shows how great their product was. It's because if you like Darrell Waltrip, you'll buy what Darrell Waltrip's puts on his car. You're going to buy Tide. So Darrell Waltrip doesn't have to say, my Tide Chevrolet. He didn't have to. We knew that that Tide car was Darrell Waltrip. And since they support him, we support Tide. Same with GM Goodwrench. Probably the reason why most people became Chevy fans has to do with Dale's car was a Chevy. So we supported Chevy. So, and I could go on and on with a bunch of those. Granted, back then they had a lot of the tobacco money in there, which I am sad that that money left. But I don't know that anybody took up smoking or dipping because it was on a NASCAR. But I do like that they supported that support. I don't support tobacco use in any way whatsoever, but at least some of their money was going to something that seemed positive. I'm never going to buy a Nextel phone because it supports NASCAR. But if, say, one of my favorite drivers, like for instance, I'll give you one. Budweiser doesn't taste that good. We all know that. But we drank a lot of it whenever we were younger because you know who they supported? Kenny Bernstein, first one to 300 mile an hour, I think, or 313 or something, or 325 or something. Definitely was a king of speed. That was him. They also had that hydroplane boat, which actually came to my grocery store and got to see it too. Dale Earnhardt Jr. We supported him by buying the product. You missed the point. So much of NASCAR did from that. And other sponsors. Country Time Lemonade sponsored Neil Bonnet when he got in that wreck. People bought that because they wanted to support that. The whole sponsorship thing now where you come out and you do your cheese dickery line, I know it's just for your sponsors, but it doesn't help sell. It kind of turns us off. You just seem like an info salesman to me. You wouldn't want me coming on, and I have no sponsors, but let's say Brodix sponsors me. Hi guys, I'm Eric Weingarten Racing. This is Eric, sponsored you by Brodix. Brodix is but they do that every time they say anything. It's just not, I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting a little long on this rant. My butt's getting numb for sitting on this chair. But here's what you could do. I think if NASCAR really wants to do some things, you've got a couple good things that are happening, and although you didn't have any part of it. One right now, Cletus McFarland coming up in the ARCA, he has a fan base. If he goes to NASCAR, that fan base will watch him on NASCAR, guaranteed. You're missing the boat completely, NASCAR. The reason why NASCAR was so popular is because there was local people that they followed, like racers you followed that moved up and then went to NASCAR, and you liked them because that was your hometown kind of hero and you followed them. That's going to be Cletus McFarland. What you need is other ones. People you would support, and you prop them up, build them up even though they're not there yet, and bring them on, because build the fan base. That fan base goes to NASCAR. NASCAR grows. Each one of those drivers back then had a fan base, because they were real people. Stop getting these young drivers. And I don't mean like I'm disappointed in them, but you're getting guys that don't have, to the outside view, and this is, I could be wrong, the majority of those drivers don't even know what any part of the car is. It's like the Formula One ones. Formula One's, that's great for Formula One. They're athletes that are blah, blah, blah. And I don't get into Formula One because I'm like, they're the most advanced cars ever. Really? Then how come they aren't faster? You're like, they are fast. So there's nothing that they could do to go faster. And like, well, they are. They're doing, no, your rules keep making them slower. That's what NASCAR did too. Formula One is probably the most advanced cars that there are. But from the outside view, like just watching them, they look the same. And like, it's just, well, the drivers and blah, I get it. I just can't get into it. But I'll give them this. Formula One, at least all the drivers, because they know they're trying to hold on to that spot in the car, they're far more aggressive than the NASCAR drivers. The last one I saw that was aggressive was, I think it was Casey. No, it wasn't. I don't know who that kid was that hit around the wall. That was a NASCAR. That was a Dale Earnhardt move. Hit the wall, rode that wall all the way to win the race or whatever, or getting the points champion. I was like, that is smooth. Worth a watch. And if people that weren't even NASCAR guys watch that. You need more of that. The calculated stuff that you're doing now, it's boring. Also, your cars are slow. You can make them look as advanced as possible. They're slow. So in 1986, I think they were doing 212 around Talladega when they had the bad wrecks. And yeah, they put the restrictor plates on. But even when I'm watching that 88 Talladega, they were still clocking 198. I think you're down to like 190, 180s. You're advanced and you're slower. Keep it above 200. 200 sounds better to people than 180, 198. There's no safety benefit. And maybe you could argue with me all you want, but 5 mile an hour wreck more, so 195 versus 200. I don't know that there's that much of a life savings in that. Anyway, I know I'm getting off on the rant on the NASCAR thing, but man, I miss the way it was. If you're one of those people, let me know what you think, because I miss it. I truly do. I never even got to go to a NASCAR race, not one. The closest one was down in Texas. And I remember, this is how big it was for those youngsters, you understand. You had to find someone that had tickets so you could go. Now I could easily buy a ticket and go down there because there's empty spots in the grandstands. As a matter of fact, they have to color the chairs because there's not enough spaces. That Talladega race that I told you that I watched, it had 100,000 fans in the stand. It was over 100 degrees outside with no shade. Let that sink in. That's pretty popular. I could get tickets right now to Dallas. Back in the day, in the 90s, you had to know someone that had had them for years, so they had a chance to get it, and maybe by chance they just weren't going, so you could go. It was big. I haven't been to one since. And I still want to do this. I don't even know if it's around. I so badly, when I was younger, I wanted to do, when I graduated high school, I asked my parents, I was like, do you think you could buy me the Richard Petty driving school experience? Richard Petty had this driving school thing that they had, and I kept getting flyers for it. But of course, I was broke. We were poor anyway. And I always wanted to do it. I don't even know if they do it anymore. I would love, talk about a life goal. I mean, granted, my drag car is probably actually faster, especially when the blower motor goes in there. It's going to be insane. But yeah, I always wanted to do that. And anyway, I still want to do it. I don't even know if he still does it. But I never watched a NASCAR race down in Texas. And even now, if they went there, I'd be like, this seems so boring. The other thing is, you know what NHRA has a huge advantage of? You get access to the drivers. They're always there. You can talk to them. Granted, they might be working on stuff. You don't have that for NASCAR. You need to get them back close to them. So back in those days too, like Dale Earnhardt, Dale Waltrip would say all this stuff too. They used to go to grocery stores and have to sign for hours, just people's stuff. So you got to know the fans. I don't know of a single NASCAR driver that's ever came to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and this is a pretty big town, by the way, this city area, or any of them for that matter, to just sign stuff to make fans. You need to do that, NASCAR. You need to almost require your drivers to be out there, make them fans or something, and do something exciting each way. Like there's a local track here. You probably could find one of your drivers and say, hey, I'm going to make you guys go here on, say, Thursday and have the track open, because the track would probably sell out. Some local dirt track, we're going to put you in a car, and you're just going to go drive around, have fun, race with those guys. Because every one of those local racers is going to try kicking your rear. But you know what you did? You just gained a whole lot of fan base in that area. And that then translates on to when you go to NASCAR. When you go to the NASCAR, the race on Sunday, now all those guys that tried beating you are still going to try watching you. Because if they did beat you, they're like, I beat that guy. And if they didn't, they're like, I was so close to beating that guy when they watch you on Sunday. Your drivers now are like passenger princesses, it feels like. You're just in your own world. So they're young, so no one really knows them because they're young. That's what I mean by almost need to get the young thing out. They're too young, so they don't have a fan base built up for the most part. And then they're never around anybody that get more. And I know it's tough, but if you watch that Dale Earnhardt documentary, you see that he didn't even get to spend time with his family because he was so busy with everything with that. To me, it's part of it, you know. And I still want everybody to be involved in their family, but you get the idea. Now you have people like, they can go hang out with their wives. They got private jets, fly them everywhere, and I don't know. Long rant. So I don't even know how long the video is, and I feel bad for you guys watched it this far through. So I'm just going to stop there to say, NASCAR, fix your stuff, man. The playoffs, by the way, does make kind of sense for NHRA because you're really battling two people. You're not battling a 41 car count. If you think about it in the long run, it's just you and the guy next to you. That playoff part almost works. NASCAR, your playoff does not work. It never does, nor does stage racing. I want to give NASCAR one more thing you could totally sell out, and you should sell pay-per-view tickets if you did this. What you need to do, and this wouldn't be that hard, get yourself some vintage NASCAR cars of the era, say the 80s, because you're fans, obviously, and they're cool cars, legitimately cool cars. They actually look for real cars that people can still buy on Facebook Marketplace. Get a field of like 20 of the cars from the 80s. So then you could vary in ages, doesn't matter. Same engines from back then, but you might limit them like 500, 550 horsepower. I don't know how you do that, but whatever. But what you do is you go ask all the legends, like Dale Earnhardt Jr., Darrell Waltrip. You get all the people that are popular that people know, and I know they're up in their age, some of them. You say, hey, we're going to do a little race, like a 100-mile race around Daytona or Talladega, and you're going to be in these vintage cars. Now, granted, we're going to give you the best safety equipment ever. We could never imagine. We don't want anybody to get hurt, obviously. And what you're doing is your car, on the side of your car is going to be the charity you're racing for. And then that's what they're going to race for. Because all those guys have enough money, I would assume. I'm sure some are hurting worse than others, depending on how they did financially. And your side of your car is just to the charity. And you're going to build it up. You need to do your own, publicity and do it up, do some testing with the car and stuff, and do it. And then I think NASCAR should do that once a year. You can call it the Legends Race. And maybe they do something similar, but I never hear about it, so it's not that great, I guess. Or maybe just do it once every 5 years. Because everybody would love. You said Dale Earnhardt Jr. is getting back in a car from the 80s. It looked like it didn't even, and I mean that by that, it has to have the charity's name on the car. You could have the Wrangler number 3 car, the Monte Carlo. But on that, at least the hood, you put the name of the charity. And then like Darrell Waltrip's 27 Tide, maybe, and just somewhere you'd have the name of the charity. And each of them out there, and you'd recognize that car, recognize that driver, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Hell, Tide would probably say, you know what, I'll sponsor you to do that, and I'll throw it in with the charity. And those companies would build it up. And don't tell me, I would pay money to watch that race because I think it'd be interesting. And you don't go, we're not doing stages. Regular pit stops back then, 5 lugs changes. Hell, bring in your old pit crew. I know some of them saw old and like, I can't bend down and do it anymore. I don't get new people. I don't care. But make it back, get the old announcers too. Get the old announcers if they're still around. That is a show worth watching. I would watch it. Anyway, I've talked enough. You guys, remember, I don't pour cast iron heads. I am no Superman. I did race Superboy. You guys take care.